Dear listeners, we love making this podcast for you. So please, if you enjoy it, do us a solid and leave us a comment or a review and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And now enjoy Romance at a Glance, because we about to get nasty. Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you say now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Well, hello, fair friends, and welcome to another episode of Romance at a Glance. I'm Bridget.
I'm Shawnee.
And today we are here to talk about Rock Hard by Nalini Singh.
Yeah. Narrated by Justine O'Keefe.
Yes. This is part of the Rock Kiss series. It's actually book 2 after Rock Addiction. And I'm not quite sure why this necessarily falls into a series about rock stars, considering that obviously neither of the characters are rock stars. One is a businessman and one is his assistant.
I was very confused by that as well. I was like, he was a former?
No, he was a rugby player.
Yeah. So I couldn't quite understand.
I think it's because in the first book, Charlotte is the best friend of the heroine.
Who's dating a rock
star. And so they like tease their relationship because you hear about it because that friend is always confiding in Charlotte. And then, so I think that's why they become the second book. And
the
then
Rock
you
series.
see, it's almost like they happen simultaneously. Like technically that book happens first in the timeline, but a lot of it overlaps because a lot of the scenes with her friend you see from like her friend's point of view in the first book, and then you see them again from Charlie's point of view in this book.
Got it. Yeah, they're always talking on the phone about what's happening, so I was like, okay, I should probably read the first book.
Yeah. But I don't think you necessarily had to. It's just
No.
giving you all a little backstory.
Yeah, I always had this feeling like, yeah, there's another book to this series.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I understand like the first book was about rock, but I definitely was like, there probably was a better title for this series. If not everybody is a rock star, especially since I've read a bunch of other series where they follow a rock band and every book is a different person in the rock band.
Well, that is this series, except for this book.
Except
the
for
other
this book?
books are all the band members.
Oh, Nalini.
Yeah.
Got it.
She just snuck this one in because she's like, well, it doesn't fit. I think it could have fit in the Cherish series with the brother.
With Sailor. Yeah.
Right.
This is a Cherish book.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But maybe it just fell in sequence when she was writing it, fell in sequence with this book. So
I guess so.
I'm not going to
That makes sense.
So anyways, this book is about our wealthy businessman hero, Gabriel. Former New Zealand rugby international star until a devastating injury sidelined his career.
Oh, no.
And then he decided to take over the world of business. And basically, the story starts with him coming in to take over the company that Charlotte works for. And she's like a very, very low-level records keeper who actually does all of the work of the assistant of the current CEO, unbeknownst to everyone, because she has a lot of trauma in her past and just like doesn't stick up for herself. And he comes in and takes over the company. And the hilarious thing is that I liked how they met because she thought an intruder was in the office. So she went to investigate and then threw a stapler at his head until he was like, hi, I'm your boss. And
I actually like when she threw the stapler, she says the minute like it left her hand, she knew she'd made a mistake. She was like, I know exactly who that is, but the stapler had already just left the fingertip.
Totally. That happens to me all the time. My husband has a real pleasure in scaring me all the time.
Really?
And every time that he's like hiding behind a door or something and I like reach out and knife hand strike him or like shout at him or throw something or fall on the floor, my brain like figures out what's happening before my body catches up. If that makes sense. So that totally made sense to me because I was like, that's me.
Right?
I would 100% throw something at him. And as it's flying in the air, go, oh shit, that's my husband.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Shouldn't have tried to scare me.
Yeah, I like that about the story. I like awkward moments like that in stories. So that one was a good one.
Yeah. And they had a lot of what I liked was at the beginning, I was a little bit worried that she was going to be very I mean, she calls herself a mouse and he says that she's a mouse. And I was worried that she was just going to be like a painfully mousy character.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed that her internal monologue was not like that at all. It was very like funny and feisty. It's just that all these outside things had, traumatized her to the point where she wasn't expressing any of that to the outside world at the beginning. But as the reader, I got to understand her character before everyone else did as she was kind of like blossoming through the book.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I definitely thought it was going to be painfully timid and mousy, and outwardly it was. But her inner monologue was you in front of the mirror,
Yeah, trying to psych yourself up.
Yeah, or when something happens and all the things you wish you had have said.
Yeah.
Like that was her inner monologue.
Yeah.
So I could like completely relate to that where you're just like,
Yeah, like when her bitchy former boss at the beginning says something snide to her and she's like in her cubicle doing the work, not taking credit for it, but like in her mind. She knows she's
She knows she's
but again, not saying a single word.
Yeah.
I did appreciate that. Well, first of all, I thought the nickname she gave him, T-Rex, was hilarious because he came in and was just like chopping heads off of everyone and fight. Like he just like came in on the first day in the office and just wholesale fired half the company and promoted the people who actually were working hard and stuff. And I just enjoyed that she just kept calling him T-Rex. Even when she would talk to her friend, she'd be like, oh, it's T-Rex calling me again. Like I just loved that was like one of the first things that outwardly was showing that she actually wasn't a mouse.
Yeah. I thought the time frame from when she was like mousy to getting more assertive was like realistic.
Yes.
So I felt like they didn't play too long. They also skipped time. They skipped a 2-month period.
Sure.
So it made more sense. Most things happened, like the last book was in the span of a day.
Sure.
Or 2 days that they fell in love or whatever happened. So this one, quite a bit of time has come. She's ordering flowers for another woman.
They have a lot of
women.
familiarity, having worked together like 12 plus hours a day, every day of the week for 2 months. Like it makes sense that she's comfortable with him finally.
Yeah. And when she does get assertive, you're like, that makes sense.
Yeah, because we've read some books in the past where we were kind of annoyed with the fact that the sex scenes took so long to happen because it didn't feel like that was like a normal thing for either character. Because you're like, they're both two like healthy, normal, not normal, but like healthy individuals who don't have any like sexual trauma in their past.
Yeah.
So like, why wouldn't they be kind of maybe like jumping on each other a little quicker?
Yeah.
And in this book, I agree. I was super happy with the timeline because it would have been so weird if you find out all these horrible things that have happened to her and her old boyfriend like literally kidnapped her in her own home, tied her up and was torturing her sadistically for days. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks after meeting this guy, she's like, but I'm in love, so I'm going to let him bone me. Like, that would have been...
And dominate me.
Yeah, dominate me. That would have been so weird.
Yeah, that would have been... that would have been really weird. I was actually curious in the beginning. I'm like, how are they going to handle this?
Yeah.
The first real romance novel that I ever read, right? So Danielle Still was like my introduction. But then I went to the library and got my hands on one of the ones with the really good dirty covers with the guy and the girl, wind in the hair. And the story was actually like very similar to this. She was like traumatized. She had like bells on her door so she could hear if people were coming in. I can't remember the title of this book, so if anybody does, message me.
Yes, let us know.
But it was like the first one I ever read. So I was actually kind of excited to see how they played this and slow rolled it from a modern day realistic perspective versus the one I read before, which was like made in the 70s. And it was very much with that kind of male gaze, written with that kind of male gaze. So,
yeah, I mean, thankfully I'm privileged to not have ever been like assaulted or sexually assaulted by someone, certainly not someone who is supposed to be my boyfriend, but I do like that they didn't. I feel like in some books, once the character is like, "Oh, but I love him," then all of a sudden, like, there's no more panic attacks. There's no more triggers. There's no more. Maybe they'll have a nightmare about their trauma in the night or something, but there's no more like. It doesn't interfere in their daily life anymore, and I liked that. They sort of worked together through what different ways of touching her were going to be a trigger. And then he just didn't do those things.
Yeah.
They didn't try to like work through the nape of her neck. He just doesn't touch her there, which I thought was like the best thing of all, because no, she doesn't need to work through it. Like, you just need to respect that's a boundary and touch her on the arm. You know what I'm saying? So I really liked the realistic, you know, even through like the end when they're like a full boning, she's having like, she like will freeze up in panic, and he just like waits so she calms down, and then they talk about what happened, what he did. And I felt like his character definitely didn't get as much character development as hers did, but he did say like, you know, it hurt his like feelings, you know, in his like heart that she was scared of him in those moments.
Yeah.
But also he wasn't like a dick about it, like a lot of characters would be, where they're like, just get over it. You should know that I love you and I'd never hurt you. It's like, well, intellectually she knows that, but this is a fear response. This isn't a logic.
So there was a lot I liked about them as a couple, but like, so, you know, I love an alpha male.
Mm-hmm.
I love an alpha male. And I really liked that he was an alpha male. And even in the way he handled that situation, he was still like an alpha male. He was like, no, we're going to talk about this. What's happening here? Mm-hmm. There was a real awkward moment in the kitchen or something in the very beginning where she like froze up or whatever. And he just backed off and he's like, okay, so what set that off? And it was just, that scene to me was like super, I was like, that's hard.
Yeah.
like mad casual. Like, okay, so I see something happen there. What set that off?
Yep.
And she's like wanting to crawl into a hole and die like in a corner because she, you know, doesn't want anybody to see this reaction. Same thing with like when he went to when she came to his apartment, he saw her like panic in the hall or whatever. And, you know, same thing. And I think that for me, that's super alpha and super strong to be able to say like, hey, I see something's wrong. Okay, let's address it. I know this is going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to address it. And things are less uncomfortable, I find, when it's matter of fact. And
it's out in the open.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and he didn't like, she was so embarrassed. And he was like, don't be embarrassed. Just tell me what I did so I can not do it.
Not do it again, you know? The funny thing is like, she did call him T-Rex the whole time. But for the life of me, I just imagined him with tiny arms. Like, like every time
It's like a former rugby player. I don't know if you've ever met one in real life. I have. They are not tiny individuals. They're fucking enormous human beings. Also, their legs, too. It's not just their arms. Like, I feel like football players, I mean, obviously, maybe it depends on position. But I feel like for me, their legs aren't as big. But rugby players' legs are tree trunks. Trunks. It's
rugby
absurd.
Players. Yeah.
It's absurd. They're huge. They're humongous people.
Yeah.
He does not have tiny arms.
And also they're like from New Zealand. I imagine, you know, the what's the name?
The Maori.
The Maori.
The tattoo.
I imagine the Maori. And I mean, they're just delicious. I mean, as a people.
Across the board.
As a people.
Yeah.
And so everything was set up for me to have like a really good image. And I had a great image, but for some reason, every time I heard T-Rex, I just thought,
baby arms. T-Rex had baby arms. That's the funniest thing ever. I did not imagine him with small arms. I did, speaking of his arms though, enjoy that over the course of those months that he was like basically courting her without her knowing, because he wasn't doing anything like creepy or necessarily super overt. He was just like, I would love that he would like come back to the office after his morning run and like casually be shirtless, which you think at first like, oh, maybe he runs shirtless. And then you hear from his point of view and he's like, yeah, of course I was shirtless because I wanted her to look and wanted her to like realize she liked me. And so I was trying to tempt her with my naked body. I'm not above it. And I was like, that's the best thing ever. Sort of workplace harassment, but also
I'm not above it. I mean, I remember one time in college, I knew this guy liked me. Like he literally couldn't like keep his eyes off me. And I liked him too or whatever, but I was playing mad, you know, coy or whatever.
Soups cash.
It was one of those things where everybody needed help doing something. And he was like, hey, do you need help? How can I help you? He didn't help not one other person.
And you're like, yes, I need you to staple these papers for me.
Right. and then he was a chef. And they were passing out food to everybody. There was a huge line. And I was like in the back of the line. And he like ran up with a plate for me.
Aww.
Skipped everybody. And I
fresh.
remember one day just being like, today's my day. Today's the day I get him. And I put on my like best outfit, my cutest heels, all the things. And then I went to where he was and I ignored the shit out of him. Got him.
We have very different strategies. I would have just walked over and probably like licked him or something. And been like,
he would have been very happy. I've gotten much more direct over the years. And now I'm just like, I want you. Are you into it? No? Yes?
That was 100% my strategy. I would just walk over and I would just like look at them and be like, you can't see me right now, but I'm nodding at Shawnee with
she is, and she's giving me brows.
I'd just be like, what's up?
That's a sexy look, Bridget.
I mean, I was like, made sure they didn't have like a wedding ring and stuff, but I mean, they inevitably either said yeah, or they were like, no. Nah. I was like, all right, cool. And then if they said no, I was just like, no problem.
You respect the no.
Yeah, I respect the no. I just go back to my friends and survey the crowd for another, for a more willing.
Back to the drawing board.
for a more willing victim. So speaking of victims, because technically Charlotte at the beginning is a victim, and then she grows out of it. So a little backstory on her. So she was brutalized by her college boyfriend, which sort of only happened because both of her parents passed away her senior year of high school. And so she was all alone, and he was one of those super manipulative, horrible people who basically finds someone who's weaker than them and then treats them well at first. And then before the cycle of violence starts, and it like gets worse and worse and worse and worse over time. And then he just turned into like a straight up psychopath and kidnapped her and went to jail. So he's in prison for 90% of this, probably 85% of this book, I would say.
Yeah.
And then they find out because she's already like fully dating Gabriel by the time he gets out of prison.
And then it's like a Brock Turner situation where like the judge gave him like barely any time.
Right.
And
he got released for whatever, some loophole reason or something.
Yeah, he got, I guess they said that he got released because he only got sentenced to the very minimum amount of time for the charges that he had.
Oh, right. Even though he like kidnapped her and tortured her and all these other things, he still only got like, it was like 2 years or something. Or something.
I don't remember what it is, but it was something stupid and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Brock Turner-esque.
Yeah. The one thing I liked was that, I mean, obviously it's very convenient that he didn't get released at the very beginning of the book, but I do feel like a lot of books would have had that happen, and that's why she has to get with Gabriel, and that's why she has to fall in love with him, and he's like, you have to move into my apartment and all this other stuff. And I liked that she had already like done a transformation of her wardrobe for no longer wearing like completely sex, but like embracing her femininity and not being scared about male attention. They had already started their actual like physical relationship by then, because this was like months and months in the future. She's already taking these important like business meetings with CEOs and stuff and feeling confident in her skills and her knowledge. So by the time he gets released, she's no longer a victim.
And she's no longer terrified by him or like mousy.
Right.
I think Nalini Singh sets up these really cliche moments to not do the cliche thing.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt the whole time. And same with the other book.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen. But then it didn't.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure they were going to bring him out of jail sooner.
Yep.
I thought for sure that it was going to be one of these stalker situations that last the whole end of the book.
Did you also think he was going to get her at one point and then Gabriel's going to have to save her? Because that's what I was thinking was going to happen.
I thought that was going to happen. And I was hoping it wouldn't. I found myself going like, please just don't let that expected thing happen. And I was very pleasantly surprised that it didn't happen. I was pleasantly surprised that when he was getting out and she needed to find a new place or whatever, and Gabriel was like, you got to move in. And she's like, nah, dog, not moving in with you.
Yeah.
And she found another apartment.
Yeah, in the same building that had security.
Yeah.
But she was like, no, I need my own place. Like, I just met you. I'm not moving in with you.
Exactly. And she was like, and I just got on my feet and I'm just feeling confident. And she's like, I know if I live with you, I'm going to be dependent on you.
Right.
And that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So,
although I did enjoy that then after she finally stood up, not finally, because she just had the opportunity, but after her creepy ex and it was in the hallway and then she like whacked him with the purse and then kicked him in the nuts. And she realized like, oh, I'm not a weak girl anymore. I'm like a strong, capable woman and like he can't get me anymore mentally. Like I'm not afraid mentally of him anymore. She realized like, oh, wait, I can still live with you and date you and be married to you. And because I've already proved my independence. I already proved I lived by myself. I already proved to myself that he didn't break me.
Yeah.
So like, what am I still trying to prove? I already did it, which I liked because it's like, I mean, I understand. I'm like, yay, independence. But also like, if you're going to be there every night anyways.
I mean, come
and
on.
you're going to get married to him. It's like, you know, you could share a house.
I like that she also, I like one that they let, that Nalini let her fight her ex first, you know, like hitting him with her purse and whatever. Then, you know, Gabriel
just destroys it. Breaks it, literally breaks his
and then
face.
Gabriel comes and breaks him apart. Which was the perfect balance for me. It was like she incapacitated him and then Gabriel comes. I also like that she kind of Charlotte talked shit to Gabriel afterwards. She's like, I had this.
Yeah. She's like, I was doing a good job of kicking his ass before you even showed up. I was like, you go, girl. You go.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to open a jar, like somebody's been trying to open the jar and then you get it. You're just like, and you're like, I loosened it for you.
Totally.
I really enjoyed that. And then I wasn't mad that she, you know, she's like, we're getting married, we're going to be together, we're going to do that whole thing because, you know, I'm all for like, you know, women, independence, all that stuff, you know, like regular stuff. But also, I'm also for like not working when I don't have to.
And companionship.
Or like, you know, I ain't above it.
And, you know, and I thought it was nice that, again, like we talked about earlier, it's like this happened over so many months. So this is like, 3, 4, 5 months into their relationship already. And, you know, she's met his family and she doesn't have a family. And they like obviously are very warm and welcoming to her, which we already found out from Sailor's book that they're like the best family in the history of New Zealand, let alone the world. and also like, obviously he is really, I mean, he's just like really good.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, like he's just good.
Yeah.
And also I liked that he was very attracted to the fact that she was so smart and so capable because he already told her, well, I'm just going to take you with me anytime I do this because you're the best assistant I've ever had. And she's like, yeah, that's cool, but we're also not going to work after 6 and we're not going to work on weekends. And like, you don't need to be so crazy. Like you already own half the world. You have so much money. Like we can calm down.
I thought that was interesting. Like their couple arguments for me were realistic. I also thought their responses were realistic. A lot of times I feel like in these, in books, they have these kind of either nothing bothers them type of thing or everything bothers them type of thing. And this was a really good balance of kind of like love and you're getting on my nerves, you know, and I like,
she's like constantly throwing muffins at him and stuff and like,
you know, and he's constantly like, you know, I work, like you met me when I was working. She's like, yeah, but I was your secretary and couldn't say shit. Now I can say something. You know, so I like that. I thought it was interesting that she didn't kind of have like not a freak out or whatever, but like when he was like, oh, we're going to go with my family for this thing. There was never a moment where she was like, at least in the beginning where she was like, wait, I'm going to meet your family. Like it was like their first or second like real date or going like thing together to me.
Yeah.
So it was, to me, you go to meet someone's family that's serious.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't bring anybody to my family who I'm not serious about.
Right.
So at that moment I kind of expected her more to think
you would have freaked out if someone else was bringing you to meet the family because you'd be like, yo, bro, we just started dating. I don't want to meet your fucking family yet.
Started. You know?
I think, well, he clearly wanted to marry her already. So he was all in. So he wanted her to meet the family. Also, if I had his family, I'd for sure use them as a trump card because they're dope. And I feel like I feel like at that point of the story, because that's like midway. So she's like definitely come out of her shell, but I don't know. I almost feel like because she lost her parents and stuff, the idea of visiting a family was like such like a treat.
Yeah.
And she was so interested in him and how he ended up that way. And she was just wanted to know more about him. So I feel like I wasn't that surprised she wasn't like weirded out, because I feel like she just wanted to meet them all and just see like how he fits, like how his alphaness fits into their soup.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, because I have a couple friends who are like the only children or child, whatever, in their family. And whenever they come to my family, they're fascinated.
Sure.
And they want to know everybody and meet everybody and just be in it.
Yeah.
And I forget that because I come from a big family, I'm always trying to be alone. I'm always trying to hide. I forget that when you don't have family like that, that it is like a really good feeling for, to hang out with them.
No, it's very true. Because I, as you know, physically don't want to have more than 2 pregnancies, but like I like the fact that, our house was always like loud and kids were always over and there's like stuff going on. And I couldn't, I respect everyone's decisions to do what makes sense for them. But personally, when I was like, oh, well, what would our life be like if me and my husband never had children? And I was like, be so quiet. Like, that's like the only thing I think is like, obviously you have so much freedom and all this money that you didn't spend on your kid. And so you have, your life is just different. But also in my mind, I was like, yeah, but like no one would be like shouting at anyone. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, shouting is like a part of life. You get the milk. Answer the door. I told you not to shout about answering the door. Like, I feel like that stuff was my childhood. When everyone's shouting up the stairs, go get your sister. Sister, come upstairs. And
I could have done that.
I told you to go get her, not to yell it. You know what I mean? Like, I could have yelled. It was like, yeah. So anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting point. She's been alone for so long, just wanting to even just be in that soupiness.
Be near. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about our female hero. Let's give her a rating. What are we thinking? 1 to 5?
1 to 5? I think I'd give her like a solid 4. I enjoyed her. I did. I felt like I didn't want to in the beginning, but I did. I enjoyed her. I give her a 4.
I totally agree. I was weary at first, but as soon as she started cracking jokes in the monologues and she started doing these like little snipey comments at Gabriel, I was like, oh, I'm in it to win it now with you. Because anytime there's good banter, they had excellent banter all the way through.
I think banter is key.
Yeah.
Even if somebody has to be more dominant or submissive or whatever it is, whatever their dynamic is, I love when there's a lot of shit talking.
And I will say, like, I did not enjoy the 50 Shades trilogy. However, I think the best part of the entire trilogy is when they email each other back and forth. And it's basically like email banter.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm on board for the banter. I'm on board for this. Like, this is what the whole book should be. Just
like,
the banter.
The banter is also like the flirting, and there was all that tension was built in the banter. So that's why it's.
When he calls her Miss Baird, and I was like, is it Baird? Baird? It's got to be Baird.
So they say it in the audio, and even in the audio, I was like, that's a weird name.
It's got to be Baird.
It's like Beard, Miss Beard.
I'm going to say Baird because that's what I heard in
Miss
my
Beard. I don't know.
Anyways, whenever he would say things like, well, I didn't say I wasn't going to be inappropriate, Miss Baird, I was like, shit's about to go down.
First of all, one of my favorite lines in the book, and I didn't write it down because I didn't know how sexy we were going in our quotes.
As sexy as can be, obviously.
I mean, it's literally like it caught me off guard. Like, I didn't see the line coming. It seemed like they were having this casual little banter.
Yeah.
And then he just decided to tell her what he wanted to do.
Oh.
Or whatever, and in explicit detail.
Yeah,
I was like, yes, sir.
And she
was
like,
Gabriel, I'm here for this, Gabriel. And then she was like, stop. And he was like, so should I cut the onions? Yeah. And I was just the transition from the dirty talk to should I cut the onions? I was like, yes.
That was an excellent scene.
That was good.
Alrighty, so we're moving on to McDreamy to McSteamy.
McDreamy to McSteamy. Oh, girl.
He was a steamy.
He was a steamy.
He was a McSteamy.
The
steamiest steam. I mean, I feel like this is what I wrote down. Hot damn. Muscles, brains, and alpha tendencies. Yum. I mean, honestly, it's like a lot of times I feel like if they're, a CEO billionaire, which happens a lot, then they're I mean, they don't say they're like portly or anything. They're usually attractive.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're also like pro athlete level, like physical fitness hotness. And they're not also, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he just had like, and he was also like sweet. And he was also like super patient and kind with her and with his family and his nieces. And I was like, oh my God, his nieces love him. Like, stop it too much. And
he used that as his like trump card when she was freaking out. He was like, so I have nieces.
100%. 100%.
I mean, he used everything. He decorated the kitchen.
Yep.
Like that to me was one of the most realistic and funny moments where he was like, he told his mom and sister to redecorate the kitchen.
Mom and brother.
Or mom
Bishop.
and brother. Sorry. To bait her.
Oh, sailor.
To like bait her into to wanting to stay.
Yeah.
And like, if I walk into someone's kitchen and it's gorgeous, that will bait me to stay. I love a kitchen.
Yes. I mean, I love my husband, but if my husband and another man of the exact equal variety and one tricked out a dope ass kitchen for me to bake in, I would have chosen that man.
Yeah.
I would have been like,
look,
you're the exact same. I love you both, but this man has a KitchenAid mixer and you don't even have a mixer. And what am I supposed to do? He has 2 ovens. Hello.
Bridget, what are we supposed to do without a mixer?
I mean, what am I using? A fork? What is this, the 1920s?
A wooden spoon? Like,
what is this nonsense? Yeah, no,
the really
100%.
good KitchenAid
like,
mixer
I
too.
thought that like the gestures that he makes to her, which I feel like are all really like long con gestures. You know, like when he's doing the flowers, but he doesn't care about the flowers. He just wants her to be jealous. When he buys the bracelet that she really likes and is just waiting to give it to her until she's okay with him sharing his affections.
Yeah.
Like the kitchen thing, which he doesn't tell her about till way later. Like all of these things, he's like, I mean, he is in it to motherfucking long con this girl into loving him.
That was a long game, and I respect that.
It was a long game.
I respect that. Because I find that, I mean, I won't speak for all men, because I have encountered a few good ones. But in general, they have a very short attention span, and they're in it for the short haul. And so spending that much time setting up the seduction, I think I felt like it would have fell off. So I respected the long game, and I liked that, whatnot. And
I myself was long conned into my marriage.
He got you.
6 months, man. He got me. By then I was like, well, fuck, I am in love with you. You're my best friend. How'd you do it? Long con. You got me. You got me good.
Oh man, I actually know somebody. It's a really interesting feeling when you know someone in business, right? So I have like a scenario similar where I have a friend who is like a pretty ruthless business person, businessman, but we have the sweetest friendship, right? And there's something so kind of cool in that feeling of like somebody who crushes in their daily life, and then but for
with you, you see a different side.
You have this whole other side, and this whole other vulnerability and whatever, and very few people get to see that, and so I like seeing this. I like seeing him as the T-Rex little hands. Walking in the office, firing everybody, restructuring, doing all this stuff. But for her, that soft side, is willing to come out. And he never loses alpha male status for me.
Right.
It doesn't matter how soft. The softer he goes, actually, the more alpha male it feels to me, because it's kind of like when you're just like a boss ass bitch, Yeah. No matter what you do, I chose to do it because I'm a boss ass bitch. Right. Totally. So anyway, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I just agree. I don't know what else to say. I just agree with you, Shawnee. What a great point you made.
I'm a blast. I can't sing that. It's copywritten.
You can sing it. It's a podcast. I don't think they crawl podcasts. And also,
I'm a boss ass bitch.
All right, and that brings us to... Oh, you nasty.
Oh, you nasty.
Oh, girl, you nasty.
So nasty.
Funnily enough, we try so hard to not talk about the books before we actually turn the mics on. I mean, it is so hard sometimes.
So hard.
This was one of the only things we've said so far before was, is there a category for this? Because it's vanilla, but it's also like has like dominance in it. So it's like but it's not BDSM. It's not like she's not a submissive and he's not a dom. So I just wrote that it was vanilla with a dominant edge.
I would agree with that assessment. And I wrote it was vanilla with a bit of kink.
Okay.
Because kink is like that umbrella term.
Sure.
Kind of like queer, where you're like, I don't know what all falls under, but it's generally this.
Yeah.
Like kink is like generally, anything that's not vanilla.
Right.
Right? So most of what they did was vanilla, but they did it with an edge.
Yes. Because I feel like the banter and the dirty talk was very much dominant and had like that nice thrill of like danger. And I also really liked that she, as she was like kind of having like a sexual reawakening essentially after like closing that part of herself off for so long, realized like, oh, I like that and that's okay. And even after like this guy sort of brutalized me and tortured me, I still am me and I still find the things I found attractive, which is I never thought would be like some guy like telling me what to do, but it is 100% some guy telling me what to do, which I liked.
It's
and also like dirty talk. I mean, Gabriel's got that talk.
He had that
He's
talk.
slaying some game.
And I just love how in the writing, I was always shocked when the talk came. Like they would be doing something else and he would just drop these bombshells and they got you. You were like, oof. Ooh. Your body's like, oof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then she'd be like, that is so inappropriate. And he's like, when did I ever say I was going to be appropriate? And you're like, oh, wait, actually, that's my favorite quote. Let me just tell you it right now because it's exactly what you just said. If you tell me you don't want me, I'm going to demand you give me your panties to prove they're not damp. Cheeks going bright red, she stamped a dainty foot. That is totally inappropriate. No rules outside the office, Miss Baird. And I was like, what? I'm sorry, what now? Yes, my panties are wet. Did you
excuse me while I gush.
Excuse me while I put on a new pair of panties so they're dry. Thank you. But yeah, that was like a perfect example. They were talking about something completely like innocuous, and then all of a sudden he gets her.
Yeah. And he got me.
Got me.
He got me so good.
Got me. Got me every time. I also had a second one, which this one was less like sexy, I felt, and more a testament to him sort of encouraging her to own her own power and like kind of look at her past in a different lens. And he said, Miss Baird, no one is good or bad at sex by themselves, he drawled. It's a team effort. And I'm a team player. So he was like teasing her, but also telling her like, you're not bad at sex. Whoever you were having sex with was not appreciating you correctly. And you guys weren't working together correctly. Yeah. But with the right partner, everyone can be good at sex.
I would agree with this.
I totally
agree. I would agree with this.
100% agree.
We gotta both be in it to win it.
Yeah, because you can be having sex with someone that you're like, you have like one physically perfect specimen, and then you have one average looking person. And that person who's the physical specimen might just like not be either on the same wavelength as you, or maybe they're just not generous, or maybe like one of you is too drunk to be like good at what's happening because you're off rhythm or whatever. And then you might have someone who's like perfectly average looking or even like hideous looking. But if they're on the same page as you sexually and you guys are working together for a common goal of bliss, that's it.
Yeah. I find that, and I hope this is not true, this is just in my experience, that the people who were more physically attractive were worse at sex. And I was like, this is a shame. Like, and I think it's because they're so attractive that stuff easily comes to them and people weren't telling them that, oh, you're not good at this. Like,
And they didn't have to work as hard.
Yeah.
Learn as
You
many
know?
tricks.
And I really want the person who had to work hard. I want somebody who had to really work for it.
Yeah, or just like, or who is happy to be there.
Yeah.
Who doesn't feel like, well, of course I'm here because like you would want me. You want the person who's like, you chose me. This is awesome. Like I chose you too. Like this
Beautiful.
is the coolest. You're gonna let me put my penis inside you. Let's do the damn
Winning.
thing. Yeah, like that's it. You want excitement.
Yeah. And I also, like, for me, I like someone who's down for the journey. And when I say that, I mean, it could be like a night that you want to play, and it's not, the goal is not sex. The goal is the fun, like, to
Intimacy of
enjoy
it.
that process. And whenever sex happens, it happens.
Right.
But that's not the goal
Right.
of the night. And that's what I appreciate a lot.
And someone who communicates.
Yes.
I like a talker.
Mhm.
Because
Dirty.
I mean, I don't.
He dirty talked the
I don't
shit out of
have
her in one of these
telepathy.
scenes.
So how would I know what it is that you're feeling if you're not letting me know?
Moaning, something,
Yeah.
grunting,
Give me a
talk to
little-
me. Plus, dirty talk is just so fucking sexy.
So sexy.
Especially when, like, I can't think of my groceries if you're dirty talking.
No.
Like, otherwise, if you're
Even
quiet,
if you never do the things to me that you're talking about, because half the time the stuff that people dirty talk, I'm like, I don't want you to do that.
Never.
If I'm in my rational mind, I'm like, the fuck are you talking about?
Never.
It's never gonna happen. You are crazy. But when it's happening in the time, I think what happens is, because like I feel like for females, it's like you can have like a physical only orgasm, which is rarer, but I feel like most of our orgasms are mentally stimulated.
Yeah.
And as well as physically. But like if you get that dirty talk going, because then my mind is now, we're in imagination land. And my mind is going straight, sending the blood right where it needs to go.
Exactly.
And my mind is like, oh, I'm on board for this.
and my imagination can do worlds better.
Heck, my imagination is on fire. On fire. But if you never like get the imagination involved, you never get that involved. You never click that in then.
I always say,
So
like,
no.
I need a partner who can control my brain, because I'm a strong individual.
Yep.
Like, I'm a beast sometimes, and I can very easily dominate my partner.
Yeah.
And so it's always so exciting to me when my partner can dominate me, because I'm such a strong, aggressive person. And when I can't think of anything else, like if you've got me to the point where I can't think of anything else, then slow clap to you. Slow clap to you, sir.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah.
One thing I do not like about romance novels though, is that every single sexual experience that a character has in a romance novel, I would say mostly, is like a mind-shattering orgasm. And I'm like, sometimes they're just normal orgasms.
I call them the roll-ins.
Yeah, sometimes they're just delightful. Sometimes you're not like, sometimes you don't like wake back up to your senses. Sometimes you're like, I mean, you realize where you are the whole time. You still had an orgasm. It was still wonderful. But sometimes in books, I'm like, it can't be mind altering every time.
No.
I'm sorry. Like, because your body goes through ebbs and flows throughout the month that dictate that. You got stresses coming up and down, what you ate that day. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into the mind blowingness of an orgasm. And they're not all mind blowing. Orgasms can just be orgasms.
And sometimes I don't really want it to be mind blowing. Sometimes I'm rolling over and I'm like, hey, scoot up behind me.
Yeah.
Let's just get a little something. And I'm in it for the lazy factor. I'm in it for the roll in
just for the gentle pleasure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need my whole brain to explode or whatever.
I'm trying to,
but I'm also like, I also really do enjoy those ones where I do lose touch of where I am. I'm in some weird subspace place and I gotta like find my way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are a few. Those are not
those
every
aren't the
day.
reg. Those are the exceptions.
Those are the tent poles.
Which is what makes them so much more special. If that was the same every single time, I mean, it would be cool, but it wouldn't be as exciting when you got there. Like, oh shit, like that was some shit.
And I find that those take longer. So I need an afternoon for those ones. And I have to have no other work that needs to be done that day.
Yeah, you can't have like your laundry piling up. You can't have like, oh shit, I gotta go grocery shop.
Yeah,
like,
I can't be like, oh, I'm gonna edit after this.
Yeah, no. Gotta clear your sketch. All right, so what was your favorite line in the book?
So I picked a little bit different on this one. My so I love the titles of the chapters going in. So I chose one of those, and I chose one because I had like almost the same thought earlier in that day for something else, and it was like chapter 35, a slight glitch. Okay, fine, a big freaking glitch. I laughed out loud when that one came in. And then my other favorite quote was, well, so I use the term favorite loosely, but it was just a line that took me out of the story.
Okay.
And it was like he said to her, do as I say, no lip, right? And it felt like something my grandpa would say, you know? So when he said it to her, and that's the same thing that her ex had said to her during that traumatic experience,
Right.
or whatever. And I was like, who just goes around saying no
this is
lip?
like not a common phrase.
Yes.
The other thing she said a lot was nape. I don't know that I used the word nape ever in my whole life, but I feel like maybe it was like 150 times in this book. Like it was like, I'm like, you could have swapped some synonyms. We know the back of the neck is the nape. Like,
yeah. But like, it's funny because I only use nape in terms of romance novels. Like that's the only reason I know the word is because of romance novels.
Yeah, I agree with you. The no lip, I mean, it made sense to me because it couldn't be such a common phrase that it was something that's like unavoidable in her daily life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like a little bit of a weird, I've never had anyone say no lip to me, and I am a lippy mofo. So I am like no sass maybe, or just like
my mom would say back talk, like back talk or whatever. But even then, I haven't heard those phrases in a really long time.
Yeah.
So like, but the no lip is something that like my grandfather probably would have said.
Yeah.
And may have said. And so it was just weird that one took me out. I was like, no lip. Huh. Or whatever. So those are my phrases.
I love the title chapters also. Chapter titles, not title chapters. I in all of her books, they're always like descriptive and funny.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like, I mean, instead of it being chapter 12, like why not put a little like funny quip that kind of gives you an idea of what the chapter's going to be about. Also, it makes me like wonder sometimes I'm like, how's that coming in? Yeah. Like what's going to happen? Like I remember there was one, it was really descriptive. It was like something like, Gabriel convinces kitchen chair sex or something. Right. Like I know. Yeah. And I was like, oh, does he? Yeah. I was like, yes, that's I was going to go to bed, but now I'm not going to. I know. I was going to pause here, but maybe we'll pause after this chapter. Speaking of the nookie, let's do, I was thinking about the Skimmer's Guide to the Cookie and the Nookie that we usually do. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, in this book, you really shouldn't read ahead. No. Because I don't know that any of their sex really, it's really hot, but only because of the buildup. Like, I don't know that if you read it, you'd be like, ooh, that's some hot sex. Because a lot of it has a lot of, like, character development and talking during it because of the trauma and stuff. So I don't know that it makes sense in this book. I agree. I think the buildup is the thing that makes it fun. So skimmers, this is not the book for you. If you're just skimming for some stuff, we will give you some titles in the blog about what to skim. But this book, I think you got to read it start to finish. You do. But I'll give you one hint. Okay. It's not the sex. But when the real good dirty talk comes in, that's chapter 16. Okay. So you could start there if you need to. You could skim the opening 15 chapters and then really start the book at 16. Start at 16. All right. Still have a ways to go before the sex. So my thoughts about the cover art and title were, I mean, it's a hot man in a nice suit with his shirt open and a rugby ball in his hand. And I was like, but why is he wearing a shirt though? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I get it. He's a businessman, too. And I'm like, but also there could be more abs. And as we've already discussed at the beginning, I'm like, it doesn't really make sense that this is in the Rock series. But, I mean, Rock Hard, I guess if I hadn't read the description ahead of time, I would have thought was going to be about another rock star. And maybe his hard penis. I don't know. Or their hard banging. Who knows? But this one, I I didn't feel like the title really fit with the book.
Yeah, I'd agree. Um, I mean, so in the cover art, he has like his business suit jacket open with a little chest peeking and some little ab action. And then the rugby ball. But I mean, I don't need that. I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. He's a businessman who plays rugby.
Right.
All unnecessary. He could have been laying shirtless on a cake.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. He could be like in a skyscraper just having come back from a run while she looks on biting a pen. Like, that'll tell me the whole story too.
I mean, I also don't really enjoy when the fonts are over like the body.
Right over his chest. I'm like, I can't
what the hell?
see anything.
I came here for the chest assist.
Thank you.
Like, what?
Thank you. I noticed that too. I was like, why are all the text so big and on top of him? Can't they be on the side or on the bottom?
Yeah, I feel like the name should be like on the border.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, like, she has now become such a big romance novel author that people obviously will get her books just because they're her books, which I think is amazing because I've now read a couple of them and I'm soups obsessed. That said, like, I do want to see the shirtless man on the front. Otherwise, why even put him there? You know what I'm saying?
Every so often I'll peek at the cover or look at it or whatever it is. I want to see. I want to see. So I may be the only one guilty of this, but I feel like I'm not. Where I will read or listen to a romance novel and find some sexy pictures like online. Okay. Somebody totally different. It doesn't even matter who it is. Just somebody I'm like, I'll just look at that picture a little bit.
Like you find one that makes you think of the character.
Yeah, like someone who makes me think of the character or just someone I think is attractive. And like sometimes the character that they describe is ugly to me. Like it's not attractive to me.
Okay.
Kind of like, you know, when the beast turned back into the prince and you were like, oh,
yeah,
go
why
back
is he
to the
so
beast.
Ugly? It makes me so mad.
That was not an upgrade. But I was like, bring him back.
Yeah.
Not an upgrade.
I don't want those feminine ass hands. I've never done a day's work.
It was weird. Yeah. It was so weird when he came back. And so some books I'll read and not be happy with the, you know, how they describe him or even the image that they put on the book. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. And then I'll just go find somebody else to be the new image, especially if I need to get an image out of my mind. So if there's a real distinct picture of like a guy on the cover and I'm like, that's terrible, I just like slowly replace him with somebody else I find
I've never done that before.
It's amazing.
I mean, I feel like I do, though, basically ignore any descriptors that I don't want to interfere with my reading, which is why, like, I think it's really interesting when books are made into movies or it's like,
because you definitely molded
sometimes
them.
I've gotten very attached to the way I imagine a character is, regardless of whether it's what the author described, but I'm very attached to my own mental picture. And then they cast someone and I'm like, that's not who I've been imagining. What is this nonsense? And sometimes that person is actually closer to the author's idea. And sometimes, you know, they just happen to be whatever, a popular actor at the time or had a good audition or whatever. But that's really an interesting, you gotta
try it.
I'll try it. I also feel like for me, it's less about the way that they're described physically and more about like either if you hear their internal monologue, it's for me 100% about that. And then also just like the repartee between them and whoever the main heroine is. That for me, I don't really focus on so much like what they look like. It's more about the chatty, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like energy play. Like the energy between the characters. And I think that's where like the sex fell for me here. The energy was just a very dominant energy. And that's what I like really loved about it. I don't think that authors need to spend that much time describing their characters.
Yeah, I agree.
I literally like I could use like maybe a very basic physique and maybe like a hair color. That's really
hair color, like maybe age range. I kind of know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, like I mean, it's usually what I take away from whatever they describe because they put all this flowery stuff in it. I'm like, okay, he's got black hair. Yeah. Okay, he's built. Right. Okay, like whatever, and then you fill in the pieces yourself.
Sure. Yep.
So I'm always kind of annoyed a little bit when they go too heavily into describing the character. I also feel like it doesn't allow your reader to have a little bit of fun with that. or too heavily into describing things that we don't care about. Like, I don't need to know about the countryside, like everything about the countryside and the flowers and the birds and the bees of things. That wasn't in this book, but in general in books. I don't need to like know all of that. They kept talking about her backstory in this book. And sometimes I was just like, okay, enough already.
Yeah, we already know. You already described it before. Yeah. Like, we're reading. I've already retained that info.
And it wasn't like they were giving new info.
Right.
And that was, for me, the one thing where I was like, a good editor could have, like, got...
Yeah, like, maybe cut, like, a chapter's worth of stuff out of this.
You know? I only need to hear someone's backstory once to lock it in. So that was my only kind of, like, or whatever with this book. But in general...
Solid.
I was pretty happy.
Well, let's hear from the people.
Oh, let's hear from the people.
I'm gonna read a review just because I really like Angie's review. She really liked it. Gave it 5 stars, and I feel like this is just the funniest way. First of all, I want to say that Goodreads reviewers, good on you for writing a whole like dissertations in your reviews. I did choose Angie because it was 1 paragraph. A few of your reviews I actually really liked, but Angie's was very succinct. I thought it was great. Fantastically written, hot rugby player. Tons of possessive alpha male growling. Dirty talk, loads of spice. Insanely hot rugby player. Emotionally damaged character who truly fought to overcome their issues. Super flippin' hot rugby player. I mean, what's not to love? And I just thought
spot on.
So spot on, Angie. Well done. And it was a 5. She loved it. 5 stars. I also appreciated the amount of GIFs and things that people put in the reviews, which I thought was really enjoyable to read. It's very hard to communicate with you because you're only listening, but there were some classic GIFs of basically people swooning, squealing, shouting yes, 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 and falling in love and things, which I always appreciate.
If you want your review picked, submit it to us, and we'll read that on the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
My overall rating for the entire book is 4 eggplants. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the character development. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the journey of them getting together over a longer period of time, and I loved me the dirty talk and banter.
I would give this 3 eggplants because I think I can't, if something's vanilla, I can't go over 3. That's probably because I read some of the dirtiest smut on the internet. But I thought that it was vanilla, but the dominance gave me that kink, and that takes me to a solid 3. And I wanted more. I definitely feel like I wanted more, but I still felt like they satisfied kind of what the book called for. So I can't be mad at that or whatever, but I could have done just a chapter of just some extra dirty.
Yeah, like an epilogue of fucking.
Yes, how did you make that baby that's coming
2 years later?
Exactly.
Once they've really worked through their sexual stuff.
When you can really grab the nape of your neck.
Grabbing the nape, tugging some hair.
Please pull my hair.
Leaning somebody over a kitchen. I don't know.
Exactly. All the things he described.
Yeah.
Love to have seen
Leaning her
them all.
over the table at work and just going
the table at work.
Downtown.
Oh, table at work. I mean, I'm not going to lie how many times I've had.
I would never do that though. Having worked in an office, I would never fuck in my office. I think it's like the weirdest thing to me. It's like when people used to like have sex at school or in college or whatever, like in class or something. Like I have I understand the fantasy. I have the fantasy. I've watched the porn. I enjoy it. But like literally, no. Because when I'm at work, my brain is just in work mode.
Yeah.
And it would be so hard for me to, like, maybe if it was like my own office or something like that. But
it's like shower sex, I think, where it looks super hot.
Yeah.
Like you watch it in the movies, you're like, oh yeah, shower sex is amazing. And in real life, you're like a drowned cat.
Yeah.
Like trying to pray.
And you can't, I don't know what these people are doing because I'm like, do you have a nonstick or a sticky floor? Like, do you have a mat down so that nobody's slipping? Or do you have little bars
God,
to
that's
hold
the worst.
onto? Because half of them, they're like, she wrapped her legs around him and then they went to town. And I'm like, how is he not falling over?
And water is not lubricant.
No, it's terrible
It's
for you. Yeah, when people have sex in the ocean or in a pool, I'm like, that is dry as a desert because my body is sealing it up to protect against all this water, and you've washed away all the lube.
It's all good. I don't quite understand, especially when a pool is cold. I'm like, how do people do
It
this?
is chlorine.
I've seen this
Like
in
chlorine
movies.
in my
I've
vagina.
seen this in places. I don't see how this is how this can
Like
work.
the foreplay can happen in the pool.
Yes, foreplay in the pool is a level.
It's wonderful.
Lovely.
And then we need to move to a dry.
Yes,
it could be a towel right on the edge.
And you should plan that ahead of time. You have a little mat. Hey, if
Right.
you're feeling extra like luxurious, put a yoga mat down.
Right?
You know what I mean? Just
Fold
for your
it
back
twice.
and your knees.
Your knees. Girl, you gotta protect those knees.
You gotta protect those knees. But I think it's super cute to like, when you're in the pool, when you're like holding on to someone with your legs wrapped around them,
yeah.
they're holding you,
You're
and you can make
floating.
out and you're floating, or you just sit together. Like I love that.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just a hop skip out of the pool
Just hop
to your
right
yoga
out.
mat.
Yep.
So many positions. Think about how many positions are in yoga.
Just in the Karma Sutra.
You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot.
So, but yeah.
So anyways,
I do think this was a really.
To sum up, would not have sex at an office. But I appreciated the dirty talk saying that he would.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It would have been nice to have an epilogue in the future of them fucking at their office.
To sum up, though, I would have sex in an office.
Okay.
Just, putting that out there.
In case anyone's interested. Don't call her.
Don't call me.
But you could. She's more likely to respond to an Instagram message or a tweet.
You're right. DM me. No penis.
Well, everyone, until next time, may your books be your lover.
And your hand, your best friend. Dear listeners, we love making this podcast for you. So please, if you enjoy it, do us a solid and leave us a comment or a review and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time at Romance at a Glance.